When the world didn't want me and made me feel small, all I am is broken inside. Some echo identity who can't find his shadow always hurts mentally. All right, so now it is time to break down the lyrics for Confined. So without further ado, let's jump into the song. So also, by the way, before we do get into it, this is the shortest song on the album, which is pretty interesting. It's the shortest one. It's just like, it's a short song, and a couple other things also. The song doesn't have a bridge. There's no bridge. There's no pre-choruses. It's simply verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. So let's jump into this lyric breakdown. So first verse here, I feel it in my stomach, locked in my head. Why do I seek the hunger when I'd rather be dead? So this goes back to a time in middle school when, like, I was judged for how I looked, or, you know, how much I weighed, or all that sort of stuff. Like, people judge me for being fat. And, you know, the term here, like, I feel it in my stomach, locked in my head. Like, I feel both, like, the I don't know, like, the internal battle of being fat, or being, like, in a certain weight class. Like, I feel it in my stomach. I feel how fat I am, but I feel it in my stomach, locked in my head, because it's locked in my head that, like, yes, I know I'm fat. Maybe that'll never change. It's locked into my head that, yes, I know. I'm, like, these kids didn't have to tell me that. I already knew that information, you know? And looking back at it now, it's like, okay, well, like, they should, obviously they're kids, like, they're not gonna know any better. Kids are awful. They really are. But I already knew that information was locked in my head in the first place, and I felt in my stomach. So, like, it's at that point, why are you judging me for being fat when I already know that information, you know? It's crazy. But then the next lines here, why do I seek the hunger when I'd rather be dead? Now, this is, think about this. Why do I seek the hunger when I'd rather be dead? Why do I continue to be fat? Why do I seek that hunger? Why do I seek the hunger when the kids bullying me and telling me that I'm fat, like, make me feel like I want to die? Like, that's just, it's a wild, like, I don't know what to call it, but, like, it's a wild, like, parallel. I guess parallel is the right word. Why do I seek the hunger when I'd rather be dead? Because of these kids telling me that I'm fat, you know, and judging me for how I look and all that sort of stuff. It's a good question. Like, why do I continue to be fat when kids are telling me to be skinny or something like that, you know? But I'm content with my body at this point. But this was, like, back then, this is how I felt. And this whole song is conveying how I felt when when I was wondering what was wrong with me, and that was a conclusion I came to, you know? The next line's here, it's eating me alive, all I've ever known, thought I knew it all, guess I've never grown up. It's eating me alive. Again, play on words here of seeking the hunger, feel it in my stomach. It's eating me alive, all I've ever known. Because, like, before middle school, at that point, like, I thought, oh, I'm just a normal kid. But then, like, everyone starts picking on me for being this way. It's like, oh, it's just eating me alive, all I've ever known. Like, all I've ever known is just, like, false, you know? Thought I knew it all, guess I've never grown up. Because I think in order to be okay with how you feel in your body, you do need to grow up. You need to, like, get past high school. And once you're past high school, you kind of know where you want to sit in how you feel in your body, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, going back to middle school was like, yeah, I guess I've never grown up, because grown-ups wouldn't make fun of you for being fat, you know? And that's just kind of the whole thing. But that's why I wrote those lines. It's because, like, when I obviously I'm grown up now, I know better. You know, I know I'm comfortable in my body, and that's where I want to be. But moving on to the next part here, which is going to be immediately the chorus, jumps into the chorus. I can't escape the pain of knowing I'll never feel more alive than I am. I can't escape the pain of knowing I'll never feel. Like, I can't escape the pain of, like, knowing this feeling of being more alive than I am. Like, I'll always be, like, in a stagnant, stale space of, and this is how I felt with the whole, you know, body image thing. It's like, I'll never feel more alive than I currently am, and I'll never escape that pain. I'll always be constantly in a stagnant, stale state. And I think that's how you feel when you're, like, super overweight or when you're super fat. You just feel numb, you know? You feel feel like you're just stuck in one spot and you don't know how to get out of there, you know. And that's why I wrote those first few lines, is because, you know, back in middle school I didn't know if I was going to be fat forever, and I still am pretty fat, but I think I've learned to manage it more, and I've gotten better at you know, picking what I eat and that sort of stuff. But moving on to the next few lines here, because all I feel like is a starving coward who's never been more confined. Because I think when you feel like you're overweight, or you feel like you just feel bloated or all that sort of stuff, you feel like a starving coward who's never been more confined. Because no matter what you eat, I mean, you'll probably stay at your same weight. You never know, but you try to get off of that weight and you still feel the same way. It's like you'll feel like no matter what you eat or how you try to lose weight, you'll feel like a starving coward who's never been more confined. Because I think when you're fat, or when you feel like you're not comfortable in your own body, you feel confined. You don't feel free. You don't feel comfortable, you know. And I think that's the problem with, like, what I struggled with in middle school, was this feeling of just being confined all the time and not feeling good about myself, you know. And I've learned to move past that. But jumping in to the second verse here, oh, the nerves, it's racking. How I feel right now, like I'm slacking. The one problem with being fat and being overweight and how I felt back then was like, and even like I think I still feel this in a sort of way, like when just sitting there doing nothing, you feel like you're slacking. I feel like not doing enough. Like, I feel like I'm just sitting here being fat, or being who I am, not being comfortable in my own body. But sometimes I still feel like I'm slacking. Like, I'll sit here doing nothing, and I could be doing something, and I'll just be like, what am I doing right now? Like, I'm slacking, you know? And it's nerves. It's like everything in your body, you feel it all. You know, it's the worst kind of feeling. It's the worst. It just is. And then the next few lines here, I want to explain all my emotions, but where do I start when they're in the ocean? And then that goes into the chorus. But what I want to talk about here is, like, this is the song where I want to explain all my emotions about how I'm feeling about that time in middle school where people picked on me for being fat. And it's like, where do I start when they're in the ocean? That ties in to another song on the second album that I haven't released yet. I haven't even done the vocals for that song. But that song really covers, like, how I felt all my life, you know? And just kind of explaining everything in kind of like in a watery sense. But yeah, you know, I want to explain all my emotions, but where do I start when they're in the ocean? Because when you think of the ocean is never ending. So it's like, it gets further down. That's where all my emotions are. It's kind of like depression and all that sort of stuff. But moving on, again, chorus is a little bit the same, but it says, because it goes into who's never been, and then cuts into verse 3. I can't feel or know what it's like to heal. This verse covers, like, being, like, fat or being overweight, but, like, wanting to find someone to be with. And I think that's the hardest part, because people will care about body image sometimes. But now, as an adult, I don't think people care about body image as much. I've learned that because I've met people that like me for who I am, and I think that's what matters. But back then, when I tried to find a relationship, like, this is how I felt. Like, I can't feel or know what it's like to heal because of the body I was in at the time, you know? And then the last few lines here, I need you to know I care, but if you said no, where would I go? Where would I? Goes into the chorus again. But yeah, I need you to know I care, but if you said no, like, if I got rejected, where would I go? That's how I felt every time I got rejected with the body I was in. It was just like, where would I go? Like, if you said no, like, because, like, I think at some point I did care about some of the people I had crushes on in middle school and even elementary school back then. But, like, middle school, like, I had feelings for people, and, like, if they said no, like, where would I go? Because at that point I was just like, I had come to a conclusion at that point. I was just like, I need to lose weight or something, because clearly that's the issue. But even then, like, if you lost weight, would people even like you for who you are? It's probably, I think it was all in my head at the time, and now I know better, you know? But moving on to the chorus, the final chorus here, I kind of do like a loop in this chorus, so can't escape the pain of knowing I'll never feel more alive than I am. because all I feel like is a starving coward who's never been more scared of knowing I'll never feel more alive than I am, because all I feel like is a starving coward who's never been more confined. Because, yeah, starving coward who's never been more scared of knowing I'll never feel more alive. So the chorus kind of loops, but I think I like the song for that, because this song talks about, like, all my fears growing up and all my, you know, worries about being in the body I'm in, and like now I've learned that I'm just content with who I am as a person. I'm content with the body I'm in. Like, obviously if I lose weight, like obviously it takes time, but it's not a big deal to me as it was back then. I think I was just overthinking everything, and this song I think explains how I felt back then, and I think everyone deserves a chance to, you know, they deserve a chance to be themselves. I think that's the whole purpose of the song, is like, hey, you're not alone in how you feel in your body or in your mind. You know, I think once you grow up, you'll learn to accept yourself more. So if you want to, listen.